What up, what up, what up, ladies and gentlemen? It's Mr. Haddock here, and what a great day to learn some science. Two times in a row, you've heard that same introduction, so it is a fantastic day. So, what I want you to do is make sure that you have open your human body systems notebook that you just created, and I want you to take some good online notes in that notebook as we move through this lecture. Remember, you can use your online notebook as a resource during any standard assessment or exam. So please make sure that you take quality notes. Remember, the notes aren't necessarily going to have all the answers on tests and quizzes, but you should be able to infer from the notes and go beyond them to answer those questions. So without a further ado, let's start off with a little bit of review from the levels of organization from before Thanksgiving break. I know it's been a week, and so if you're like any other middle schooler, you will have forgotten everything, basically. So let's just quickly review the levels of organization. So you'll notice the smallest and simplest form of organization that we are talking about are cells. And when you form a group of cells together, you get tissues. And when you combine tissues together, then you'll form an organ. And when a group of organs are working together, that's an organ system. And when a group of organ systems are working together, you have an organism. So, and the organism is the largest and most complex in our level of organization that we will be talking about this year in 7th grade. And there's a nice diagram over there on the right-hand side. If you would like a picture like that from your notes, if you would just go to Google and just type in levels of organization of living things, they have more detailed images in a lot of them, but you can find an image just like that to the right to add to your notes if you would like. Now we're going to go into a little bit more detail with regards to each of the levels of organization. Specifically, we'll start off with the cell, the basic unit and structure. This provides simple functions in all living organisms. The cells can serve a specific function within the organism, but they don't always. For example, you have red blood cells in humans that carry oxygen throughout the blood. And then you have nerve cells that send electrical impulses. Just a heads up, a neuron is a type of nerve cell, and you may see that on a standard assessment or something. Just know that it is a type of nerve cell. And then, another example would be bone cells or the osteoclast. That's a little bit more detailed, but those are all specialized and they have a specific function within human bodies specifically. So the osteoclast is a type of bone cell, the neuron is a type of brain cell or messenger cell, and then a red blood cell is a type of cell that carries oxygen throughout the body. When you form a group of cells that have a similar function, you create a tissue. Tissues work together or when cells work together to perform a specific task or activity. Your example would be a group of muscle cells working together to form muscle tissue, which then can be used to move your arm, just like in that GIF. By the way, that is a real picture of Mr. Haddock's bicep. So just be aware of that. Yes, I am pretty ripped. But there are 4 different types of tissues within the human body. There's connective tissue, there's epithelial tissue, there's nervous tissue, and there's muscle tissue. And it actually can get even more detailed than that. The nerve tissues are used for the messaging system. These would be neurons, so they can send electrical impulses throughout your body and allow your body to communicate with itself. The muscle tissues are used for movement, such as your biceps or triceps in your arms. The epithelial tissue is used to protect, so this would be like your skin. And then the connective tissue is what holds the body together and supports it, which would be things like your bones and your ligaments. Moving on is the organ. When you have a group of tissues that work together to perform a specific activity, this is what an organ is. And some examples of an organ would be heart, brain, and skin. The heart is actually made up of muscle tissues. It is a muscle that is used to pump blood throughout the human body. And then the brain is a mass collection of neurons that is able to communicate with the remainder of your body, such as the heart, to tell it to pump and contract so that blood can get pushed through your body. So some pretty cool, I really like that gif of the heart there, kind of showing you how it actually pumps. It's not like this. It kind of like twists a little bit instead of like necessarily squeezing all at the same time. It's hard to explain the way a heart truly pumps, but I feel like that GIF does a pretty good job of showing you what a beating heart would look like. The next level of organization that we're going to be talking about is the organ systems. Now, this is where we're going to be spending the next 3 weeks. So if you guys are into like human anatomy and stuff like that, you're really going to like the next 3 weeks up until Christmas break. So an organ system is defined as a group of organs performing together to carry out a specific function for the organism. Multiple organ systems can work together to allow the organism to function as a whole and survive. In the human body, there are 11 major organ systems, and we're going to try and get through all of them in the next 3 weeks. So we'll spend a little bit more time on others, or some rather than others, but we'll definitely knock them out and cover all of them at some point. And they're listed over there to the right. Just a note there, the circulatory system can also be called the cardiovascular system. Those two are synonyms, as well as the excretory system is sometimes called the urinary system. And the immune system is sometimes linked with the lymphatic system. But we'll cover them. We'll try and look at how they work together to help us survive. It's quite interesting how the human body, how complex it is. Just an absolutely fascinating organism that we are. And I'm thankful that we have the ability to actually study it. When you combine a group of organ systems together, you get an organism. This is the entire living things that carry out all basic life processes. Now, in order to be classified as life, there are multiple things that it needs to be able to do. It needs to be able to take in materials. It needs to be able to release energy from food, such as sugar or from photosynthesis or sugar from eating other organisms. It needs to be able to get rid of waste. It needs to be able to grow. It also needs to be able to respond to the environment, and it needs to be able to reproduce. Interesting little side note is about viruses, and some scientists actually believe or support the idea that viruses are living organisms, while other scientists are on the side that viruses are not life, simply because viruses cannot reproduce outside of a host cell. They actually need to be inside of another cell in order for them to reproduce. So I am along the lines of that viruses are somewhere in this gray area in between living and non-living organisms. But maybe one of you is interested enough in life and this field of science that you might be able to truly come in with a final definition in the future of whether viruses would be classified as life, why or why not. Usually, organisms are made up of organ systems, particularly multicellular organisms, such as humans, horses, fish, trees, insects. But Some organisms can be made up of only one cell. These would be the microscopic organisms such as bacteria and amoeba. We will talk about amoeba, which is a type of protist, later in the year. But then you have mushrooms, sunflowers, humans. Those would be all examples of multicellular organisms that actually have organ systems. So, quick refresher there. Organ systems are in multicellular organisms, whereas an organism can also be classified as a single cell, like bacteria and amoeba. That is it for the notes. My work here is done. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Please make sure to read the text and watch the video. They're fantastic to assist you with the learning of this content. If you have any questions, I'll be here in class to assist you or through email. So have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the text and the video from the Amoeba Sisters. Adios.